everyone, and welcome to today's TeamLease podcast, where we exchange ideas, insights, and experiences related to our sector. We use this as one of our platforms to collaborate and find innovative solutions to the real-world challenges that we face. Today, I'm pleased to introduce Mr. Kasi Viswanath, a stalwart in the human resource management field and head of HR at L&T Construction and Mining Machinery and Industrial Machinery. With over 25 years of experience, including more than 18 years serving as a trusted advisory to business leaders and an integral member of the leadership teams, he brings in deep expertise across organizations of varying sizes, industries, and geography. Mr. Kasi Viswanathan, welcome again, and thank you for taking the time out to be a part of this podcast, sir.
Thank you,
Excellent.
Dhiren. Really happy to.
Thank you so much, sir. Means a lot. So, sir, in today's business landscape, we cognizant that successful organizations understand that hiring the right talent is the key, but aligning them with the expectations is even more critical, right? So, wanted to take your views on how do you think that organizations could really get their hiring strategies right and ensure that that's linked aptly with expectations of the associate or the employee coming on board.
No, absolutely. I think today we are in the, you can say that we are in the employees market because employee has a choice. So definitely he is making a change or he's joining an organization with some clear objectives that he has. And therefore, it is very essential that we have to meet his expectation, which starts right from the time we actually hire him. Because in the process of hiring, when you're discussing with the employee, you're going to set the expectations very clearly. If you're going to adopt a sales method where you're going to oversell yourself and the job, then later the employee might get disillusioned. So I think it is very important that we show him the true picture of what he can get into so that he does not get disillusioned once he joins. At the same time, for the organization, it is important that we really hire what we really want. Because, if you see, whenever we do some impulse buying, even at a personal level, you buy a mobile because it's impulsive, then suddenly you realize that the features of the mobile don't meet your requirements. Maybe the camera is not good, or maybe something else is not what you want, and then you bought and invested in that mobile, you just can't give it up. And you sort of live with it for some time, till, you sort of get, you feel that, I will rather give away the mobile, I'll throw it away, I mean, that's something that we don't want to happen as far as recruitment is concerned. So it's important that you clearly state what your requirements are. And this, many organizations do it in terms of competencies. They define competencies which are there, both technical, that is the hard competencies, and the soft competencies. And then they do a very scientific way of hiring. They train their recruitment people, they induct them into what is exactly wanted. And in that process, they try to see that the gap, that what you want and what you get is as minimal as possible. There will be some gap, of course, on both sides, but that's something which can always be adjusted on both sides.
Got it. Very aptly put. So I like the way you gave the example of a sales pitch out over there. And I think that does happen, especially when there is pressure from business leaders or from the business team to get someone on board. And that's where I think the HR team plays a very critical role. So I've also seen instances where a person might be an expert or might be a real good employee in some other organization, but coming into a different organization, he faces his own set of challenges. I'm making a safe assumption that again could be a small mismatch with respect to expectations and the actual delivery. So just want to understand from your vast experience, what have you seen such instances and what would be the best way of handling it so that the viewers could take away something from it?
Sure. So the way I look at it, if I have to put it in a mathematical format, I will say that success is equal to individual capability plus, I will put it as a delta, and that delta is very, very important. Of course, that delta includes basically luck, which is very important. Plus, of course, it includes things like organization culture. It also includes the environment that the organization has. And when I say environment, it also means under what circumstances the person is joining that organization. All of this is very, very important. A person could have been successful somewhere else, but if he gets into an organization where the people who are hiring him have other agendas in their mind. They probably had their own candidate whom they wanted, etc. Then this person they will never ensure this person succeeds. Secondly, if that person was successful in an organization which allowed him to do things in a manner which this organization does not allow him the freedom to do, then again he will not succeed. So therefore, that delta piece, which is, I call it a lot of pieces which are there in the delta piece, and that's why you will find that a lot of people who are successful in one may not succeed in the other, and a lot of people, vice versa too, people who are sort of unsuccessful in a organization go on to some other place and they thrive over there, because I think the environment plays a big role. It's just like, I now it's all IPL season, and I will therefore use some IPL example. There's a player who probably did not thrive in a certain environment. Maybe he was not so successful in RCB, and in the next season he goes on to join maybe Punjab Kings or something like that, and there the environment, which is is completely different, and therefore he succeeds. It's not his capability that's not changed too much. Of course, he might have put a little more effort in practicing, etc. But the real thing that's changed is the overall environment. Maybe that environment gives him some freedom to experiment. That environment gives him a lot of other things like training or like coaching and so many other things that might make him succeed. So I think I feel environment plays a big part. Of course, luck plays a big part too, but luck actually favors the brave, as they say. So I will rest it at that.
Got it. Very interesting. So I'm going to pick up on the last point that you actually said. I mean, I loved your instance of RCB and Punjab Kings coming in. And as you said, that it primarily is the kind of team dynamics.
They're going to play today. So I just...
I know. So you're right. Team dynamics plays a very critical role. In similar ways, an organizational culture and the environment plays a very critical role for anyone to actually excel, right? At the time of hiring, what points do you think should be highlighted by the HR team, which gets very critical for a person to evaluate whether he's going to be a good fit or no? I mean, see, if it's a sales profile, you've done sales, you can fit in anywhere. But it gets very critical for the HR team to ensure that he's not a misfit in the organization, not from a capability perspective, but more from a culture perspective. So any thoughts around that, sir? What can really be done?
So if you look at any job today, I will split the job into two parts, the what and the how. The what of the job is typically the more visible part, the KRAs, the result piece. You are supposed to achieve 10 crores or 100 crores or something like that. You are supposed to handle this territory and, get 30% share in this territory. Those are all the what part of it. That's pretty clear and it is easy, and everybody understands that. But the place where typically a new joinee falters is the how part of it. How are you going to achieve this 30 crores? How are you going to achieve this 30% market share? How are you going to do this? And that's where the culture part of the organization comes into picture, because the culture decides the how part of it. And there are some cultures which will not allow many things which the other person was used to. So therefore, as a recruiter, if my suggestion, or I would always request a recruiter to focus more on the how part of it, because the candidate also is generally not interested or does not ask much on the how part. He asks on the what part, what's my target? What's my region that I'm going to handle? But he never tries to ask, because maybe he assumes that will be same like where he was working. But that's a big part. And I think that's very, very essential. I mean, just to give you an example, in my organization, we hire people, and in many organizations, they are used to deal with dealers. They get most of the work done through dealers, and the dealer sales guys do actually all the groundwork which is there, and this person only has to manage the dealer workforce. In our case, it's more, we are little bit more direct. We do things with dealership, and some dealers do help us, but our sales generally happens more direct. So someone who comes over here, the how part of it is actually very, very different. And I think it is important. Therefore, the recruiter should tell the how part of it more clearly.
Got it. I think that's a very valid point, sir. And I'm sure all the ones who are viewing this or listening to this will take this as a key takeaway that how an employee or how a new joinee goes through his journey in the company plays a very critical role for his success or for the goal set by the business, right? That's excellent. So just to understand, let's say the hiring team has gone about getting someone on board, followed all the key steps on what and how, but we still know that mistakes do happen and wrong hires are onboarded, right? Any thoughts on how there could be a structure around a feedback for the HR team in a more scientific way so that we don't make the same mistakes again, or we learn from our previous mistakes and get better at saving time and being more productive?
Sure. Today, of course, there is the old-fashioned method and there is the new methods. The new methods, of course, is that you keep putting a lot of this data into systems. There is an artificial intelligence system which will sort of, get all this thing done, and it will give you a typical, questions to ask because of the mistakes that you made. It will ask you what to probe, etc. That's the more scientific method. The
Sure.
more old-fashioned method is that any hire that you do, I mean, just like when you buy a car, you check with 10
Mhm.
people who own the car, or at least you do that with
Mhm.
2 or 3 people. You check into reviews.
Mhm.
You check into,
Mhm.
something about the car through some other sources, maybe magazines or so on and so forth. And then you
Mhm.
make an investment in the car. You know,
Mhm.
in the same way, when you are investing in a resource, you also try to find out ways by which you can do a similar check. It could be, people whom he has worked with, some employees in your company who know him or her. It could be some online, the online profile of the person. It could be if he's a LinkedIn, if he's got an online presence, where has he contributed, what people have said about him. I mean, there is so much available which is there. I still call this old fashioned because old fashioned recruiters would do all of this. You will have your
Mhm.
own old school connect, and you will call somebody in HR whom you know, and that person would have worked with this person, and so on and so forth. I think that's very, very essential. The point I'm trying to drive is fight of new or old technology. I think knowing and doing the check on the antecedents of the person is extremely important, and invest that time. And if you're doing mass hiring, you have your method to do that, because you cannot escape. And because the chances are the way the person has been in the past is the way the person will be going forward. There wouldn't be much changes in the person. And especially if these are attitudinal points which he has exhibited in
Right.
the past, they will definitely haunt you even in your organization. So I think it is important that the recruiters keep that in mind.
Got it. Very, very aptly put, sir. So I have two questions that come to mind based on what you said, sir. I'm going to start off with the first one. I'm sure in your experience over the last 30 years, you would have sat with your team and told them that, hey, we need to relook at a few approaches as such. While you did call out the old fashion and the new fashion, would it be possible for you to share an instance in any of your past stints where you've told the team to relook at the way they're doing things so that they could be a little more effective?
I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, we might be 5 or 6 in terms of adoption of new technologies. We've got some way to go, at least
Mhm.
my business. I'm not saying about the entire L&T, but my
Got it.
business,
Got it.
and uh, we're just making some steps. And one of the areas that we are trying to use AI and sort of this new systems is to give summaries of candidates, because we have so many candidates who have come. So we have our own internal tool which is there, an intelligence tool which is available. So all these profiles can be put through the intelligent
Mhm.
tool, and it gives you a summary. And this
Mhm.
summary is what we use in order to discuss with our managers and shortlist profiles. So that way, we are able to cut some time. We are able to do that. So that is one of the ways by which we are trying to use the new methods in this. We are also using some structured methods of interviewing, because in our business it is easy to get into a ego fight. I know more than you, or L&T is better than XYZ organization, so I'll ask you questions. So we're trying to get into doing asking people to do the BEI type of format. When I'm saying format, essentially asking them what they know rather than what they don't know, And I think we are stressing on this in all our inputs to people, that please ask people what they know. And then if what they know is what you want, then hire them, don't ask them what they don't know, and I think that's something we are trying to do on the recruitment, on the interviewing side. And I think these are some things which we are trying. I know our numbers are not large, so we really don't have to do some real out of the box stuff. But little bit here and there we are trying to.
So I like the way you actually highlighted how technology plays a critical role with respect to hiring right now. And I think we're seeing this across all the verticals within a particular company too. Good, sir. So that brings me to my next question. One is hiring the right talent, but what could be the critical steps to ensure the right kind of skill development of that particular employee and to keep him motivated, especially during the initial phases of his stint out there?
Okay. So when you're saying initial phases, I'm a little confused because we will be initially hiring him for his skills, which is there. So obviously, when you hire a person for his skills, my assumption is that the skills would have matched your requirement. It is important that any person whom you hire, obviously the first 100 days they say is very, very important, and you can then divide it into your own milestones which are there. It could be a monthly milestone or a 30 days, 60 day, whatever method you wish to, but you need to have some method where you are checking both with the hiring manager or the person who has hired him, as well as the individual, where do they stand? And this is very important. And this is what is a problem in our case. As I told you, that the people come from all the different type of organizations. Inherently, they are good people, but they are used to working in a certain way, and that way is different with us. And certain skills that they need in our system, they might not have that with them. So it is very important that those gaps come out, and those gaps can come out in the first 30, 60, or 90 days. In fact, we tried and we experimented with a agency to sort of create a online tool where the person at the end of these milestones goes and does some online checking the way he is doing sales, and by this method, the gaps are actually arrived at, because we have set the system in such a way that we want it as per our method. And when he does this game, it's a gamified system, those gaps are actually thrown up. And those gaps then become training needs for these people, and that is very important, especially if these are red flag training needs, or which are like, the ones that must do type of training needs, then we need to put them. There are some which are good to do things, which can wait. That's not a problem. But if there are must do things, I think it is important to get them addressed. I think that is very important.
Got it. Very interesting. So now just switching from an organization perspective to an employee perspective, right? Since you come in with such a vast experience, I'm sure many employees during the early days go through their own challenges, go through swings with respect to whether they're enjoying it or no. It'll be love to hear your words of wisdom for them, because we have a large set of audience who will possibly be working somewhere and go through these own swings when they join a new organization or in their own organization. So can you share something from your end that, hey, what should you keep in mind to keep yourself motivated and keep the whole thing going, irrespective of how the organization is?
I attended a marriage yesterday in Coimbatore, so I'm in this marriage mood right now. So if
Okay.
you look at a typical marriage, and myself and my wife, we have been married for 25 years. This is our silver jubilee year. In this 25 years, there are many a times, we both would have felt, hey, look, I think I'm better off alone, So yesterday, I went for a Catholic wedding, and the priest told one wonderful thing. He said that the process of exchanging a garland is actually like a contract between two people. And this garland specifically has a circular or oval shape to indicate that it is an infinite system. It is not a finite system. It's an infinite system. So you are exchanging a commitment of infinitism between the two people, and that's exactly where, and he also said that in this process, both of you will find many a times disagreements. Many a times there will be time, where you will feel, hey, look, this is not for me, but please remember the time when you actually were in love with each other, and that's what will make the marriage work. So when an employee joins, many a times he will feel that there are things which the company does which is not good, and he feels like leaving. But at that time, he should remember the time when he loved this place. When he joined this place, he fell in love with this place. My boss is 40 plus years in the company, 45 years. Our chairman emeritus has completed more than 50 years. And, he is, all these people would have had several instances when they felt they hated the organization, and they felt this is not a great place. At that time, remember the good things the organization has done, or a time when you fell in love with the organization. I think that's the place, which will make you stay on. I think today's world, or today's employees, or today's young generation is always looking for everything to fall their way, and they have patience is a bit low. They also have opportunities and options which are there, and that is why they are a little impatient. My suggestion is that please do give the time to organizations. I have seen employees in my own friend circle or in my own organization, employees who give time to organizations eventually end up, like the hare and the tortoise story, eventually they end up at the winning position. And I have seen this, and it has been proven time and again that the long timers make it to the winning pole much more than those who keep hopping. And I think that is extremely important.
Got it. So I think the last part you said is really critical, especially for the younger generation, the Gen Z and the Gen Alpha, as they actually call out, where there's a certain level of impatience that kicks in. And I really wish everyone listening to this takes this significant point away that, hey, you need to be patient, wait for it, give it some time, and good things will happen towards the end. Excellent. So my last question for you would be again for the recruiters out over there who are primarily listening to this. If you are to give them two very critical points that they should keep in mind through their stint to ensure that their recruits are aligned with the business goals, what is it that they should keep in mind? And based on your experience, what would you love to say, sir?
I have a couple of points to say. Today, the recruiter or the profile of a recruiter is very different than our times. The time that I started as a recruiter, very, very different. I think obviously the reasons are because the audience that they are handling is a little different. So even the R word itself is something that they must stop using. That's the start point. Don't call it a interview or a recruitment. It is more a discussion with somebody who's very keen to explore your organization. So as a recruiter, you are the first phase of the organization to the outside world. And people look at you and they say, hey, look, this is L&T, or this is some organization which is there. So you need to first know your organization very well. You need to know your organization so well that when you talk, it's as good as that organization talking. Very, very important, which means you should know the latest happenings in your organization. You should know some of the big projects that the company has won. You should know, where this organization is spread. You should know people who have grown in this organization. They are all part of your sales kit. You're like a salesperson over there. So a recruiter, first plays a sales role. He is the face of the company to the external world. Second, he plays a role of a procurement guy. When I say a procurement, a supply chain guy, it is a recruiter who decides whether a make or a buy decision has to be made. He should know what he has within the organization and what the gaps are, and whether this gap can be filled by internal training or should he buy from outside. This make-buy decision, which procurement guys make, is what a recruiter typically also needs to make. So he's a good sales guy. He's a good procurement guy. Of course, he needs to be a good conversationalist. He needs to have that conversation skills. I always give examples of Simi Garwal or people who are very, very good conversationalists. The way they speak, they allow the other person to speak out and come out and make the person feel very good. I think you need to be that, and in that process, you will get good people who are your ambassadors. Even if they don't get selected, they will go out and say that, hey, look, this recruiter is great. The recruiter also today has to have some of the modern outlooks. For example, he needs to be aware of diversity and inclusion related points. Especially when you're interviewing a special candidate or a candidate who's a lady, I think it is important that the questions that you ask should make the other person feel that you are sensitive to these points. You are an inclusive company. I think that is extremely important. The recruiter today has to have all of that. And finally, the recruiter has to have the business orientation. He must feel, hey, look, I'm getting this person by paying him this money or this sort of a money. Is it worth it? Is it not worth it? How am I going to upset the internal apple cart if I take him? What's going to happen to two other people if I take him? I think all of that a recruiter must have in his mind. And, being technically savvy today, a recruiter can use many technologies that are available, which have improved and developed over a period to assist him in these decision-making that he is going to get involved. So finally, I think a recruiter, just to summarize, has to be a good sales marketing person. He has to be a good supply chain person. He has to be a good conversationalist. And finally, he has to be a good, overall business manager is the way I look at it, Dhiren.
Got it. Very nice. Going with the cricket instance, I think every organization needs more couple devs in the form of recruiters to ensure that they actually get the act right. Unfortunately, in the past, at least, the HR process and the recruitment team has been more of just a pure support role and undermined in its own ways. But now with organizations looking at HRBP and they being involved a lot more, I see a significant role how HR and the teams playing a role. So excellent. So, sir, thank you so much. I'm sure your tidbits for the HR teams as well as the employees and individuals like me play a very critical role to keep us going. And thank you so much again for taking some time out for this, sir. Means a
Thank you,
lot to
Dhiren.
us.
Thanks to
Yeah.
TeamLease and Dhiren, you for discussing with
Pleasure.
me this. Thank you, TeamLease, for this opportunity. Thank you.
Love to have you on board again, sir, and thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful.